Hey there, it's Evangeline right here at etrailer. Today we have the RockyMounts GigaWatt in a pretty interesting position here. We're going to talk about how this fits on the front hitch of our 2022 Ford F-250 Super Duty. This is actually an interesting situation where the owners of this truck asked me for my recommendation for carrying around bikes on their front hitch. And the RockyMounts GigaWatt is something that I personally recommended to them for some very specific reasons. There are a lot of bike racks out there on the market, but this specific one I think is a great option if you're going to be mounting this to the front hitch of your truck. The main reason is because it includes a ramp. So this ramp attaches to the end of the rack, and I don't know if you've noticed, but the front hitch here on our truck sits pretty high up. So having this ramp makes things a lot easier for getting your bikes pretty high up as well. Now, your bikes are going to sit up and over the hood of your truck, but you have plenty of clearance here for handlebars, pedals, things like that. So if you looked over to the side of the bike, the main thing I had asked people was like, how long are your handlebars? Is that going to make sense? Here, doesn't matter how long your handlebars are. And from our pedals to our front bumper, it sits with about 4.5 inches of clearance, so plenty of space there. This rack can tilt away, but I actually installed the bolt into the GigaWatt to prevent that. So that's another reason the owners of this truck preferred the GigaWatt. And the reason for that is this is an RV rated rack. Now you don't need an RV rated rack for your truck, but I recommend it because there is going to be a lot more movement and a lot more wind hitting this bike rack. And knowing that the GigaWatt has that extra hardware to make sure it's a sure and stable rack, even when you have that extra movement behind an RV, makes it a good option for when it is on the front hitch. Another reason people wanted this rack or prefer this of the different options given was because of the weight capacity. This has an 80-pound weight capacity. The owners of this truck have 2 heavy electric bikes with fenders. So not only is it a heavy-duty bike rack, but this also has a hook that you can attach to a bike that has fenders, and then you have extra straps to give you that extra stability, extra security. If you're curious about that option, check out my full review video right here at etrailer.com. But looking at just the truck and the bike right here, you can see why this is a good fit. Now, if you had to take the bike off, let's talk about how this bike is mounted on there. So we had the front hook, which we saw and talked about for fenders, but we also have this rear strap. And this strap slides back and forth for different wheelbases. Now it's secured with this lever right here, holding on to it pretty tight. That's just because of how I have it tightened down. When you press that lever and push up on the strap, you're able to release that strap and slide this out of the way. And this way, we're able to maybe bring our bike down. Now I have the ramp attached right now to get that ready, but the next thing I have to do is holding onto the bike with one hand, hold that, press this lever here, lift that up, push that out, and now we can ramp the bike down. Oop, and we are missing the strap over here, so that also needs to go. 1 and 2. There we go. And now bringing the bike down, make sure to hold on to your handlebars so that front wheel doesn't move around. And then we're just going to bring this down through our ramp. So compared to some other bike racks that have ramps included, the ramp here on our RockyMounts GigaWatt is a really wide one, which I very much appreciate because then you have more of a track to go around and you're less likely to fall off of the ramp when you're coming in. Now, notice over there on the front are wheel loops. So those loops are helpful because that's where your front wheel goes. And then you have a bunch of rubber straps to hold everything in place. Again, that's where we get our fender capability. Everything tightens down to make for a really easy movement there. Less knobs, less straps, less things to deal with. It really is just a matter of putting the bike on there, tightening everything down. It should only take a couple minutes to get both bikes on there. Now what doesn't secure onto the rack is the ramp. So you are going to have to put this either in the truck bed or in the cab of your vehicle when you're not using this. I'm just going to put this off to the side. And we're gonna make this a little bit more nice and neat, just like that. Now, the hooks, you do have to make sure you're using those straps on those hooks that you'd usually use for fenders, and that's what's going to secure the hook to the rack and prevent it from popping up when not in use. So just something to keep in mind. But this is what it looks like on the truck. Let's talk about some measurements real quick. Let's talk about ground clearance. So where our front hitch is to the ground, that's a clearance of 22.5 inches. But if we measure from the bike rack to the ground, that's gonna be about 31 inches. The tray to the ground is like 33 inches. So your bikes are sitting really high up. That's a good reason for using or getting the ramp out in order to get your bikes up and on there, especially if you are using that heavier weight capacity of up to 80 pounds. Now this rack does fold up to be more compact and neat. So if we're gonna take a measure from the bumper to the end of the rack, there's some things we need to know. With it in the down position, bumper to rack sits at about 32, 33 inches. And that's a good amount of length. But if I were to remove the bolt in here in order to fold the entire rack up, let's see the difference that makes. You don't have to use this bolt. I just like it because that is a requirement whenever you have this on an RV. So pull that lever, bring the rack up to its compact position. You can see the big difference it makes in length added to the back of the vehicle. So from the bumper to the end of the rack, that's now 14.5 inches. So this is something that I would recommend when you're just driving around town. You don't have your bikes on there just yet. This also looks kind of like that guard you might put in front of the truck. Just remember, your bike rack and your bikes are also going to be your first line of defense for all the bugs that are coming through when you're driving down the highway, things like that. So you may have to hose down your bike rack and your bikes a little bit more regularly than you used to when this is stored on the back of the truck. So with all things being said, hopefully this explained why the owners of this truck preferred the GigaWatt of all the other different options I presented them with. The owners also have another truck with a 2-inch hitch receiver in the back. So when they're not taking this truck out, they can easily put this bike rack onto their other truck and still have all of those full features and usability. So when you're looking for a bike rack for your front receiver hitch, feel free to reach out to us here at eTrailer. We have lots of opinions, lots of recommendations, because every journey is a little different. Every bike rack is too, and we'd love to help you find the best fit. But today, this was a look at our RockyMounts GigaWatt mounted to the 2-inch front hitch receiver of our 2022 Ford F-250 Super Duty.